Do you have your dream life yet? Are you listening to us in your dream car as you're pulling up to your dream house with your dreamy husband, cooking you a dreamy, creamy pasta linguine? Yeah, we didn't think so. Today, we're putting living in reality up on our vision boards and asking manifestation to fess up, man.
Hey, Andrea, how you doing?
I'm good. I have been dying to know how your coaching career is coming along. And by coaching career, I don't mean like you can work with Jessica as a coach if you want to, which you can.
Which you can. This is true.
Yes.
Great differentiation there.
Yes, you can. That information is in the show notes. I'm also available. So, no, but your football coaching career.
Oh my God. I'm so happy you asked me about this because let me tell you, I remember started as considering head coach, then decided my place was assistant coach. Okay, so I have been placed as like the assistant to like the assistant coach.
Oh, like the assistant to the regional manager. Like
Yeah,
I
mean, basically, it's like the nice way of saying like water boy. Like,
okay.
or, like water girl, equipment manager. But
Yep.
here is what is funny about this, Andrea, is that I think that I kind of manifested this because here, and I wasn't thinking about this until it all played out. One, like being at these practices, I don't have time. I don't have the time to even be the assistant.
Oh, I'm
right?
so glad that you recognize that. I manifested that for you.
I think you did. I think you did. So I'm loving it. I don't necessarily have to be at every practice. I don't have to know all the plays. I'm just there to help out as needed. And girl, this is exactly where I should be. Like I still have like the cool like coach bracelet, but I'm also like just the person that they're like, what can we have her do? And I'm just like rah rah girl on the sides helping as needed. And I swear this was manifested.
Okay. All right. So how'd you make this happen? Your dream role for your dream fall, your dream schedule, your dream life? How?
So
that's how it works, right?
Well, obviously, right? So I just kind of like, thought about all the things I didn't want to do. And then the universe just magically made it all happen. That's obviously how this whole thing worked.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, did you read The Secret when it came out?
Do
you remember it?
Not. And I remember feeling like, okay, first of all, Oprah featured The Secret, obviously.
Well,
and
that's why I read it.
Yes, I remember, I think my mom read The Secret, and I feel like I was like, that's not real. Like, there was a season of time in my house where I'm pretty sure that this kind of, like, you can control the world with your mind thing was in vogue. And I
Do you remember trying
it?
Did you ever try it?
No,
okay, because I totally read The Secret.
Okay.
I know, and I totally read The Secret. I remember being single in my condo in downtown Chicago, reading this little tiny book. It was so small, The Secret. I remember like driving to like the Jewel Osco and being like, I'm going to manifest a parking space open because that's what The Secret said.
That's what it says.
Think about it like hard enough and you really put your energy into it, it will appear. So I'm like, that fucking didn't work. I didn't get a parking space. And in fact, I got even aggravated that I didn't get the parking space. And then I'm like, well, clearly I am like failing at the manifesting thing too.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. Obviously, you just didn't manifest correctly. If you thought of a parking space and then it didn't open, and there's absolutely no other explanation for that. By the way, you could pray to St. Joseph, I think. That's what my Catholic relatives would do when we'd go to look for a parking space. It was like, there was maybe that's the wrong saint. But anyway, people have been trying to make things happen.
If you were Catholic and you know what saint she is referring to, you go ahead, you reach out to us, you tell Andrea she's a bad Catholic if she got it wrong.
I was not raised Catholic. All I could say is that that has a very similar vibe, right? People have been trying to engage with the universe, whether through spirituality, prayer, or I feel like the one that's in vogue right now is manifesting And I am seeing this everywhere on the internet, and it makes me insane. It
You're
makes me
seeing it like
insane.
right in front of you, but don't even tell people what's on my shirt, because if they can't see it, it means they're listening to it. And it means if they want to see it, they have to go to YouTube.
Yeah.
They have to like and subscribe so
Yeah.
you can see my shirt that I am
I
wearing
I
for all
love
to
it.
see. Do not tell them when it says. They have to go see it for
Okay, I
themselves.
will not tell them, but I do wonder, did you own this shirt before this episode?
Duh, girl. I saw what it said and I was like, yes. And you want to
Really?
know what the brand is?
What?
Spiritual Gangster.
I kinda like that. I
Well,
kinda like that.
I might have a sweatshirt that says Spiritual Gangster,
Yeah, I vibe with this.
right?
That makes sense to me for sure.
Right?
I just feel like I don't get it. I don't get it. And
Mm-hmm.
my Instagram feed is full of manifesting. And a lot of that for me, what I am seeing is around business and
Yep.
around money. And it's always this notion that all you need to do to have success in business, that like the most important and maybe the only thing you have to do is manifest. That I just need to be on the right vibrational frequency to like I need to be high vibes and I need to believe abundant money will flow to me and then it will. And I'm like, "What?
No,
That is not
that's not
Maybe
accurate.
that has not worked for me." And then like you, I started to go, "Well, maybe I'm just not high vibe enough." Also, I don't believe it works, so
Well,
I'm not
and
high
here's
vibe
the thing,
enough.
because I'm a big believer in all of this, right? It's like the hippie, the Colorado hippie inside of me. I'm a very big believer in it. However, it wasn't until I actually understood what it is. But what we have gotten wrong with it is exactly what you're speaking to. We've essentially said that if it doesn't work out, like you're
Mhm.
trying to manifest it and it doesn't work out, then you did something wrong. It puts all
Mhm.
blame back on the individual, which is actually
Mhm.
not what manifestation is. We'll get into that a little bit later. There's
Mhm.
also this notion that if you're just positive enough, then everything else will follow suit, right? Think happy thoughts, live happy life, be happy, right? Happy, 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 which goes into this whole idea of this toxic positivity that gets
Mhm.
shoved down our throat. If you're just positive, then good things will happen to you.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know. Do you see that play out in your office? Because I
no, I
don't.
mean, I don't see that play out in my life. I mean, maybe
No.
I'm just not built for manifesting because a I would say I'm a practical. I'm a practical realist. And some would say that I am a pessimist. But I've seen some shit. Okay. That is why I became a therapist, right? Like, I just, I work with people every day in the most difficult times of their life. And the idea that we would say that if you're going through something difficult, it's either because you don't know the method to manifest or you're not good enough at it yet. As if you are responsible for every single thing that happens by the power of your mind, or you could change every single thing that happens by the power of your mind. This literally came up yesterday. I had to let my client know, hi, we're recording an episode on this tomorrow. And I just want you to know it's not weird. Like, I'm not talking about you. Now I'm going to kind of mention it. So sorry. But something had happened medical, very negative and very positive. And what my client said was, I think I manifested this. And I was sitting there with her going, oh, I can't sign on to this. Like that you had a negative medical thing happen to you and it's because you thought it? Oh, I, it, I can't. I can't do it. I can't.
Oh, I
I
know, and I'm
won't
going to
do
push
it.
against it a little bit. Now, in a therapy session, I likely wouldn't. But here's the interesting thing about manifesting from a neurological standpoint is that,
Mhm.
and actually it brings in our favorite thing, you and me, Andrea, attachment theory,
Oh, I
right?
do love
So
that.
I know we love our attachment, which we're going to get into more and more as this next. Ooh, we got lots coming, folks. So make
Mhm.
sure you have followed the show because we are going to really dig into attachment. Total side note there, but I had to say it. Now, from an attachment lens, we know that essentially the baggage you carry from your childhood, all of these experiences, they go on and can go on to shape everything that happens in our life. So, from a place of manifesting, now I wouldn't necessarily, I think it's too simplistic to say you manifested this. However, if we zoom out and just look at it, if I have a belief that nothing good ever happens to me, that will manifest things happening to you because you have now set an intention, right? And so we've talked before about our brain finding evidence to support whatever belief we have. So if I'm like sitting there and trying to manifest this beautiful life for myself, but my like core belief is that nothing good is ever given to me, or if I ever have anything good, it's taken away, that becomes the manifesting. It's not the positive, it's the negative of it getting taken away from you. So that's where I struggle with, did she manifest the struggle? No, because again, that's too simplistic. But if there's a constant fear of getting sick, I do believe that fear can drive you to getting sick because it becomes a main focus, right? I'm so scared of this. I'm so scared of this. And a lot of times the thing in which we're that scared of kind of can happen if we give it that much power.
I don't know, man. I have so many dueling thoughts and feelings here. We have to take a break.
I was going to say, don't do it, girl.
I know. We'll come back and I'll tell you my dueling thoughts and feelings about manifesting, especially where it comes to health. Before we get into this, I think it is important, as the resident word nerd, to just mention what the actual word manifestation or manifesting means.
Yes.
And I will say that when I looked it up online, there were so many different definitions. And I think this is part of why what we see all over the place on the internet is not useful. So the word manifesting means the act of making something happen by imagining it and consciously thinking that it will happen. Manifesting is based on the idea that you can think your dreams into reality. That's the Cambridge Dictionary. And I think we're going to debate at some point if that's really what it is, right?
Well, again, I'm just going to go back to that's too simple. And so that's why, yeah, I mean, technically that is what it is, but I don't know, that's so simple and it doesn't break down like exactly how you do that and why it can or cannot be effective. So, here's the deal is when it comes to manifestation, well, let me go to the brain. Until the brain recognizes that the intention should be attended to, it is completely irrelevant. So I want to introduce a quick term to everybody. Let me know if you've heard this term, Andrea. Value tagging. Have you heard that? What value tagging is? Okay, so essentially value tagging is a way in which we embed an intention into our subconscious. Okay, so let me give you an example. I know. Let me give you a really good example. So say you're at a party and it's super loud, right? You can't really hear the person in front of you, but somehow you hear somebody across the room say, Andrea, but you can't hear the person, right? Because value tagging, okay? Because it is embedded into our subconscious to recognize when the word Andrea is said. Think about mom. How many times are you dead asleep? Nothing can wake you up, but somebody yells mom and boom, you're awake.
Can I unvalue tag is what I'm asking.
Nah, right?
I would like to
I don't know that
because
answer.
the number of times that I have to hear the word mom and am jolted from everything else I'm doing, it's about 752,000 a day. So,
see, that is the perfect example of value tagging, though. We are embedded into our subconscious is this whole notion of pay attention to those cute little voices, sometimes yelling mom. But literally, sometimes a train could go through my bedroom and it will not wake me up.
Mm.
Sleep right through it. But a little voice from another room saying, Mom, boom, I'm awake because it's
Mm.
embedded into my subconscious. So,
Mm-hmm.
from a neuroscience standpoint, they will say that we're actually manifesting on a consistent basis all day, every day. It's just not very effective if we don't put an intention to it. The brain won't
Mm.
pay attention. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to the brain looking for evidence to support whatever belief you have, right? Think about it. If I am going to say, oh, I'm going to have this amazing career and it's going to look like this, but embedded into my subconscious is, sucker, that's never going to work out for you. Think about it,
Mm-hmm.
how that will block the intent.
Well, in a lot of ways, what we're saying is that this is in psychology, we
Complicated.
would just call it different, right? We would say, it's a repeating pattern, or, people they live out the things that they know and believe, and that we have subconscious beliefs that drive us towards one thing
Yes.
or another.
Yes.
So, in a lot of ways, I'm agreeing with and tracking with what you say. I really do think that the power in manifesting is really about widening our view or narrowing our view onto
Mm-hmm.
certain things, right? But I have so many issues here
Okay.
because, when we're talking about the health example, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
I do think health is a little bit confusing because I do believe that our brains have power in our bodies. I don't think that if you worry that something will happen, that it will definitely happen in your body. I,
Agree.
because if that is true, then if you get cancer, it's your fault. Or if it's true that your brain, we're just constantly manifesting all day long, every day, and everything that happens is from the power of our brains. We just had friends who lost a young family member to cancer. Was it because they didn't manifest hard enough? Was it because he didn't? I just I,
Well, I
I
think
just
that's the
have a lot
pop
of problems with
culture.
this.
I know, but
Mhm.
I think that's you're just buying into the pop culture definition of what manifesting is, which, like you said, is part of the problem. That
Mhm.
from a psychology standpoint and a neuroscience standpoint, it's so much more complex and completely different than pop culture has made it.
Mhm.
Right. Because when you say, did they manifest cancer? I'm thinking, well, no, we can't ignore our own DNA and our genetics.
Right.
Some of us are just hardwired to get certain things that others aren't because of our DNA. And
Right.
that's
And our
where,
environment
yes, and
but also
poverty, not
and
poverty, the food you are able to afford to eat versus
right.
you're
And
not. There's so many circumstances.
chance. So I don't know. There are still people in the world who have a spiritual practice or believe in God or believe in the universe or believe in something. And in this way, I was listening to a little Manifestation Babe podcast yesterday, and this is where I kind of started to put this together in a way, this common notion, not the psychological notion that we're talking about, but this common notion is essentially like you are God. You are the power of the universe. And whatever you think just happens. And then if it doesn't happen the way you want it to, it's because you didn't think it right.
Right.
So another example would be like money. Okay, this pisses
Oh,
me
no, no, no.
off.
You can't do money. You can't do money.
I will talk about manifesting
No, no,
money
no.
because
You should, but I'm just saying
right,
like want versus need and go ahead, but I'll tell you why money is a struggle for
oh,
manifestation.
I just uh, ooh, here this is what's showing up on the internet
Mm,
is
mhm,
I will
mhm.
manifest abundant wealth. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if that worked, then like
No.
all the people who are born into poverty,
Poverty.
it's just kind of like their fault. Or like, if we struggle to pay our bills, is that because I wasn't manifesting abundant wealth? Or is it because I wasn't working for that money? Or is it because I didn't have the, like, again, good hand to play
Mm, mhm.
that gave me the opportunity to get the job? And like you and I have talked about, there are factors that are just so much bigger, right? Were our parents more financially successful than we are as a generation because they manifested that, because they were better, or because they thought it better? Or is it because of like economic forces? Is it because of time and place and chance and good fortune, right? Like nobody's doing that on their own. So I just, you know, I
Yeah,
have
I hear
problems with
you.
this.
I hear you, but it's want versus needs too.
Mhm.
And I think that that is where it plays into it is a lot of times when people are trying to manifest something like wealth, it's in a state of stress. And if there's one thing that won't be embedded into your subconscious is anything that is when you're in a heightened state of stress or fear or anxiety, nothing gets embedded. It's not going to work. And so I think we're just simplifying it or the internet has simplified it. And that's where, because I do actually believe in the power of manifestation when done properly. I 100% do. I like utilize it. That's the power of meditation and sitting in a calm state and dreaming and thinking. It's the power of vision boards and putting up something and really attuning to what you want. Now, what I don't buy into is manifesting stuff from a place of want versus needs. It's totally different, but I am a huge believer in setting an intention and making that your focus. And I would
Mhm.
actually argue that half of the things that I've made a reality is because I've attuned to it. I've set it as an intention and I've really looked at how can I make this my life? But I've never tried to manifest like winning the lottery or anything like that. To
But
be clear.
people do. People do.
Well,
Or
right.
they manifest their 8-figure business, or they manifest, I would love to manifest having a body like Giselle. It hasn't worked yet. I've
Yep.
really wanted it. I've thought about how it would feel. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be really focused on how it is. I've thought about how it would feel, and yet it has not happened.
Hmm.
If I just keep believing it, then maybe it will come to me. And I don't know that what is, like I said, I listened to Manifestation Babe, a top 0.05% podcast. And so clearly kind of a driver of this. She was not talking about want versus need. She was talking about want.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
talking about you can have anything you dream of. And I listened to her 5 steps, and I got to tell you, I don't know how it works. We have to pause here. But
Hmm.
when we come back, okay, we're duking it out right now, but let's talk about if per se manifestation is something that's real and does work. How does it work? And how does it not? Ooh, it's getting a little heated in here.
Clearly, we do not agree on this
I
topic. And
know.
I have to tell our listeners, I didn't know that. We were
Well,
so divided on this.
here you are. And we learn something new every day. My mind is blown. I'm sure your mind is blown. I think it's time for you to take the floor. We know how I feel about manifesting, right? And I will toss in my thoughts and feelings here, my practical pessimist questions, but I think it's important that you as the manifestation believer and the studier of the manifestation lay out what it actually looks like, how to do it, and I will let you know what I think about that.
Okay. You can give me, okay, first I'm going to break it down into a couple steps and then I'm going to tell you my real world example of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won the lottery I'm just kidding. I didn't win anything. I don't even play the
Be.
lottery. I know. I wish I did. Anywho, okay. So essentially, if we're going back to that whole idea of value tagging
Okay.
and getting our brain to recognize, one of the best ways to get our brain to recognize our intention is to activate our senses, all of our senses, right? You
Mhm.
activate all your senses and it's embedded a lot quicker. So, number one, write your intention.
Yeah.
Write it down, what you
Mhm.
want. 2, read it in silence. So
Mhm.
just reading it. And then third, read it out loud, say it out loud.
Hmm.
Number 4, sit and visualize what you want. Those
Okay.
are my 4 steps. So I listened to, his name is Dr. James Doty. He wrote the book, Mind Magic, The Neuroscience of Manifestation and How It Changes Everything. I will say the first sentence in his book is the universe doesn't give a fuck about you. That's where
Perfect.
he won me over.
Thank you.
Yes, this is where I'm going to send. I think I need to buy you this book.
That's fine.
So, because he basically is debunking so much of the stuff, but also he's me, but way smarter from a neuroscience standpoint. And so I'm listening to this podcast, right? Yes, I listen to a podcast.
I'm so proud of you.
I know. See, and then I'm hearing you talk
I
about listening to a
manifested that too.
podcast, and I'm like, you did. See, you're going to be a believer after this episode, girlfriend. I'm telling
I
you.
was like, please, universe, let Jessica listen to a podcast
And I
because
did.
she doesn't like to.
And I
All right,
did.
well, I'm
and
powerful.
I did. And look, and now I'm like, man, look at me. You're going to be a believer now. So I'm sitting in for my son's birthday. All he wanted to do was go to his favorite place for a weekend with family. And he's a fisherman, loves to fish. So this little dude, he was turning on his 8th birthday. He got up 4 o'clock in the morning with my husband because that was the prime time to go catch these like huge fish that he wanted to catch. He didn't catch anything. Okay. Total trooper. It's fine.
He didn't manifest it.
He didn't manifest it. He was a failure at manifesting. Kidding. So my daughter and I are sitting at the pool on his birthday because I was fished out. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like this little guy just needs to catch a fish. So I'm like, I'm going to put this to the test, right? Like, but I truly wanted. So you're going to be like, shut up, Jessica. This didn't happen. But I swear to God, it did. So I'm like, I'm going to try this out. I wrote it down. We were sitting at the pool and I had all this stuff out. So I wrote it. I said it out loud. I said it silently. And then I envisioned like him catching this huge, he wanted to catch a tiger muskie, this gigantic tiger muskie. And I'm just sitting in it and I'm like really thinking it. And I swear, I kid you not, 1 minute later, my husband sends me a picture of a 2-foot, it was a catfish, not a tiger muskie, the biggest catfish that has ever been caught in this lake with my son's beautiful smile on his face. And I was like, oh my God, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. Now, did I manifest it? I don't know. But in that moment, I was truly trying to like envision it. So again, pessimist over there.
I am exploding right now.
I know. Okay, I can tell by her face.
Here's
Go
the
to
thing.
YouTube.
Here is the thing. Sometimes when you go and fish, you catch a fish. And sometimes when you fish, you don't.
Totally.
And I think it's a beautiful thing to say, I want to set an intention that I'd like to catch a fish, right? And I understand things like, here's an example that I think is a good one. As somebody who is a writer, I've heard this as a writing exercise. Think about yourself 5 years in the future. This is very similar to manifesting, living the life that you want. But the point of the visualizing is that you'd really get a sense of what does that person do on a daily basis, right? Like, how do they feel? Yes. But what do they do? So that as you're really getting a full vision of, for example, I want to write a book. Well, if 5 years from now, me is writing a book, has a book deal, and is working on a book, what does she do? Well, she sits down in the morning, grabs a cup of coffee, she starts writing, and it flows easily and without distraction, and then she stops for the day. It's about understanding the action that would happen. But again, that stuff is in my control. Or you visualize running a race, and that helps you in the morning to get up and get your shoes on and start running. But I do not believe this. To me is like the same thing as any other, I don't know, spiritual or power or whatever practice. I don't believe that you commanded the fish with your brain. I don't. I think your mind made a beautiful connection. It basically gave you credit for what happened naturally. That's what I think.
Maybe. But what
and it
you
makes you
can't
feel
prove
powerful
either
and
way.
happy. I'm not. You're right.
But you can't prove either way.
But neither can you.
That's what I said. You can't prove either way.
Right.
You can't
know.
prove whether it is or it isn't. So why not? Let me ask you this. Why not just in that moment, like, believe that you were able to? Why not? Like that sense of like pride and joy. Why not just lean into that? Because it was such a beautiful feeling. And in that moment, it gave me so much joy. Instead of going to a place of, well, that was just circumstance. You catch fish, you don't. But the sense of like, wow, when I truly like feel positive, not that, listen, I work in the field of sudden and traumatic loss.
Right.
I have babies dying. I got all kinds. Why not believe in something positive? Like what I don't understand. Also from spirituality, I just am such a woo-woo believer because I work in grief and I could write, I'm not saying a book, I am saying books about beautiful experiences that people have after they've lost somebody that you cannot explain. And you just choose to believe it or you don't. And a lot of times they believe it because it brings them joy, it brings them comfort. And
Yeah.
so again, I think you're just negatively attached with it. I have more positive attachment to it, but maybe it's just because I'm really realistic with it, or I just believe if you set an intention and that becomes your main focus of your subconscious, that maybe if it's meant to be, I also don't think everything happens for a reason. And so I don't know. Maybe it's more complex to me and that's why I believe it, but I have yet to like experience anything bad happening from just like positively setting a rational and realistic intention.
The reason I cannot track with this is because what happens then when the thing that you want and believe doesn't work out?
You're
Like,
disappointed and you sit in the disappointment. This is like part of the toxic positivity we hate, though, is like,
right.
well, then you deal with it and you work through it and you move on to the next intention and maybe you reevaluate. Why was this not good? I know, like, not from a health perspective, but that's the thing is like we're by not manifesting, well, then you're essentially avoiding discomfort of something not happening that you would really like to happen. And why not just be uncomfortable?
I guess because I feel like to use the word manifest, it means if I just think, then this will happen. And I just fundamentally don't believe that. I think setting an intention is incredibly important. Visualizing how you want your life to go is incredibly important. If I set an intention that my partner is more responsive to me, right? Like that I have a more loving marriage. I don't believe that I can control my husband with my mind. But I
Well,
do believe
no.
that if I set an intention to like, I think about what I want my marriage to look like and feel, and I really visualize that, then I can become motivated to do the things that would lead to that outcome, right?
But
The
that is
word manifesting to
manifesting.
me just isn't, it's an idea that I can literally, at least in popular culture, just make anything happen with my mind. Like, I think that that is the problem for me. Or another manifesting thing that I actually do buy into is this notion of like, if you want it, it is made for you. This is actually very helpful for me. I want to write a book. Okay. Then I like to think this desire was planted in me from somewhere, but that might be like a spiritual way. It might be basically my mind, my hopes and goals and longings and also my talents, right? If I like wanted to write a book, but I'm like a terrible writer, this is like not, but I like this idea of the life that I want, it like that it comes from somewhere, right? But I think I have to take action. If I want to write a book, but I never write a day in my life, the book is it's not gonna appear. It's just not. And that's what popular culture manifesting says is that I can just want it and then it will be here. And I don't believe that's true. I'm like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Take action.
Well, and that's where I think, you have to be able to sit in discomfort, which we're all for, right? And so I think that we're hardwired to avoid discomfort. So sometimes, like from a pessimistic standpoint, it's like, well, why would I do that? Because if it doesn't work out, I'm going to feel like crap or whatnot, right? That would be a more pessimistic view of it versus an optimistic on, okay, why would this thing that I want, why? What's the why behind it? And I will say that I guess my viewpoint of manifestation is I don't watch the pop culture stuff because I just have such a strong feeling of what it really is versus what it isn't. So I avoid all that. That's probably why I still have a positive view of it. I just look at it from a neuroscience standpoint. But I think that at the end of the day, if you are trying to create something from a place of stress, anxiety, fear, haves, wants versus haves versus wants versus needs. a lot of it just isn't going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that just happen and there's no way of avoiding it. You and I have talked about that before. And so I will never buy into a belief that you can create this magical, perfect life for you. Because if there's one thing I know, you cannot control bad things happening, period, end of subject. But can we create things that we want to create in our lives? Well, sure. But I think your why is very important.
That's fine. I also think that like setting an intention, being in touch with your longings, this very much aligns. Like I'm not a person saying that you shouldn't have a plan, like an intention or a hope. I think in fact, getting in touch with your deep longings is incredibly important. But I think that if I were to set an intention, for example, if I was to get in touch with the longing that I want a new friend, this is a key issue for our listeners. I want a friend, right? I feel the sorrow of maybe not having a close friend in my life at this season. I feel the longing to be close to somebody. I envision what it will feel like. And then I think that the manifestation happens when, because of that, when I go to the coffee shop, I'm just more open to eye contact from someone. Or when I go to the kindergarten mom's night out, I notice, oh, hey, I really hit it off with her. Like I see the positive things that show that this thing that I'm wanting is happening, but I don't think that the universe is like, oh, Andrea wants a friend and then just like drops it in my life. And
No, God, no.
that's what manifesting is on the internet. And I think what you're saying is that's not what you believe in.
No, that's not what I believe in. It's actually not still what the true, like, if you break it down to the science of it, it's not what it is.
Right. I just think that after your 4 steps, the last one has to be take action. So you envision what you want, you know how it's going to feel, you say it out loud, right? You really develop a sense of it. And then you do something.
Correct.
And I think that literally is missing from the steps. Even on Manifestation Babe, it was shocking, but she never described taking action. She just described things coming to her. And I'm like, I can't get down with that.
Well, and that I agree with, right? So I think you do have to take action. And the idea with value tagging is that if you do this enough, it's not a one time, but if you really write it out, you envision it, you say it over and over enough, you embed it so much into your subconscious that you start taking action, right? You want it so much more than you do sit down. You do outline what that's going to look like. How am I going to get there? But no, you don't just sit down and like believe something's going to happen and it happens. Not always. I will say sometimes maybe it's just circumstance. Who knows?
Sometimes things play out to your good and sometimes they play out to your ill. Our TikTok girlies have got to listen to this episode because girls, you are not getting the full deal on what this is. But I think this is when I want to hear from our community. Jess and I actually agree apparently on like 89% of this, but disagree fundamentally on that last like 11%. So are you team manifest or are you team, I don't know, good things happen, bad things happen, take some action and, something will happen. That's a little bit more me.
We're going to put up a poll in our Facebook community and on Instagram. Yeah. And when this episode airs, we're going to put it up and let's see. Yeah. Let's see what people say because I don't want to put up the poll until after our episode.
Yeah.
Is heard.
For sure. Well, we're going to bring this to a listener question on Thursday. So if you are invested in finding out how we will answer a listener question around a manifestation, make sure that you're subscribed to the pod and you tune in on Thursday. We will see you then. That's it for today's honest conversation. But don't be sad. Didn't you hear? We'll be here for you, speaking some truth and feeling some feels every Tuesday and Thursday. So make sure to follow the show so you don't miss a thing. If you love what you heard here today, we would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a review. It helps new listeners to find the show. We truly believe that these conversations are best when they're carried out into your real life. So, share this episode with a friend and check out the show notes for more ways to connect with us outside of the show. Until next time, thank you for listening to Honest Women.